Hello everybody, how are you going? Welcome to some Rick Mercer, usually in the form of Rick Mercer Reports, but this time in the form of a Rick's Rant, of which I don't know how it differs, but taking the usual lovely, happy character of Rick and making it a rant. How does that go down?
6 months ago, if you asked random Canadians on the street what they thought about Tim Hortons, the vast majority of them would probably say positive things. In this country, we've always had time for Tim Hortons. So it is inconceivable that suddenly Tim Hortons is front and center in the debate on how companies treat minimum wage employees. I would say that the guy who built Tim Hortons is spinning in his grave, except he's still very much alive. That would be Ron Joyce Sr., the genius that built the Tim Hortons empire, an iconic brand that most Canadians felt reflected Canadian values. That's Ron Sr. Do not confuse him with Ron Jr. Ron Jr. is the son. Kind of like Fredo in The Godfather. Ron Jr. is also in the Tim Hortons business. He owns 2 stores up in Cobourg, Ontario. In his spare time, he sits around in Florida and comes up with cost-saving measures designed to improve the Tim Hortons experience. Not for the customers or the employees, but for the owners, people like him. For example, this past Christmas, Ron Jr. came up with this idea that from now on, his employees at his Tim Hortons who make minimum wage, when they work a 9-hour shift, he will only pay them for 8 hours and 20 minutes. You see, he's upset about this increase in minimum wage, so he thought he would make a point on the backs of his employees. You gotta hand it to Junior. He is very committed to his work. It is not easy destroying the Tim Hortons brand. It's exhausting, especially in the Florida heat. If you ever wondered why we need minimum labor standards in this country, look no further. Leave it up to some of these owners. Every Hortons in the country would be staffed by grandmothers doing 12-hour shifts for tea bags. It's time that Tim Hortons realize people are now watching. And if Tim's doesn't do a U-turn fast, customers in their drive-thru just might.
Oh my goodness. Well then, just like that, I could feel the vinegar in his voice. And I do love kind of the presentation of the entire thing. And I do know very, very brief bits about how famous this alley is. I don't know what the context of the alley is, but I know that he sets a lot of it in it. And just to be walking around in the back streets of somewhere random with the cameraman going crazy every 5 seconds, just going backwards and forwards, really emphasizes it though. It really nails the point, like a camera zoom or a cut or anything like that. It really does well. And he just absolutely nailed it. I could love to believe that it's the first take, and I'd love to believe that they only did one take, and they could. However, something just leads me to believe that this is TV and this is not going to be the only one. But putting that well aside and actually focusing on the context of the entire rant, it's interesting that he covered the entire staple of Canada. Like you said, it's impossible to kill almost, but they were trying deep down. And I do want to know, when did this come out? It came out, or at least it was posted, Rick's Rant for January 16th, 2018. So it came out virtually on time. And so I wonder how it has recovered in that time, or perhaps it hasn't recovered. Perhaps that guy, the son, got his way of just driving down the, business expenses and profits up. The shareholders, if there are any, loving him. Everyone else, not so much, which is then going to be detrimental to the share price long term, which is always, a fine line for them to be walking. But I don't know how you get away with paying someone 8 hours and 20 minutes, even if they worked 9 hours. Now, maybe if they worked 9 hours, being they started at, 8 a.m. and they finished at 5 p.m., but that doesn't equate for their lunch break. Is that perhaps what they're talking about? I mean, at the same time, though, they're already allegedly talking about the minimum wage workers. How much more can you possibly be taking from people? I mean, of course, the entire pay scheme and pay scale does need to exist. Some jobs obviously are valued more. They do contribute more, whether it's from the person's mind or from the person's hands or whatever it may be. But we also know, kind of now more than ever for the vast majority of people's lifetimes, that people cannot be affording to be living on peanuts and eggshells. They just need a little bit more substance in their pay packet. And so to be docking even that 40 minutes a day over a 5-day work week, if you were going to be going that way, then that's going to add up to a sizable little percentage over the entire course of the year. And of course, that's why the business wants to do it. But come on, there has to be a little bit of give. Otherwise, like I said, you can drive up the share price only so much, and then the entire business will die in an instant because no one's buying your stuff anymore. And so if this is the general style of Rick's Rants, I cannot wait to see what else he has in store for us, because if he's starting with a staple, or if we're starting with a staple, we can only hope that he's going to dive in and just provide a lot more context to a lot more nuanced but big topics. Well, apparently this one is Canada, and I don't know how one of the most Canadian Canadians I know are going to be ranting about Canada, but let's find out.
In 15 years, this show has covered a lot of territory, a lot of hours in the van, a lot of hours in the sky. We have visited over 500 different locations in Canada, every province, every territory. Someone did the math. Turns out I have walked 42 kilometers in this alley since we began.
There we go.
I've loved every minute of it. It's embarrassing how much I love my job. And the best part, other than rolling the car or plunging into freezing water or being bit by Mike Duffy's dog, hands down, it's the travel. I don't know if we are the greatest country on earth, but I know this. We're the best looking. And I also know in my heart of hearts, we would be better, stronger, and more unified if more Canadians could make it their business to see more of Canada. And I know, it's not easy. Not everyone has the resources to travel to see the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia, or the foothills of Alberta, or to go up the Saguenay River in Quebec. And if you can't make the big trips, make the small trips in your own backyard. I guarantee you, it is awesome. And if you do have the means, either now or in the future, skip the trip to Florida, explore a part of Canada you've never seen, or better yet, promise yourself that you will stand above the tree line before you die. You will not regret it. Ooh. We all know we're a great country, but it's not enough to just know it. Do yourself, your family, Canada a favor. Go out there and see it.
Ooh, just like that. I did like it again, and I was wondering, like I said, how are you going to possibly be ranting about Canada? And I thought at the start that he was going to be saying that Canada is just too big and it's too interconnected, unconnected, that's the word, so you cannot see it all, and that's always going to be a problem with any country, big or small. To see it all is always going to be a very difficult thing, but some countries just do have it a little bit harder than others. Like you said, going all the way up to the Bay of Fundy and then all the way over to the West Coast, and there is so many possibilities you can go in between those. And then they just go to Florida instead. I mean, if you want to go to Florida, go to Florida. But it's just often people don't even think domestically. And maybe that is because I've heard that the flights are often even more expensive than traveling internationally. And so that's also another hurdle that is just holding Canada back. And that's why people want high-speed rail and all of those kind of things. There are plenty of other things, I'm sure, that contribute to the cause. However, it does make a good point. Go out there and see your own country. If nothing else, you're just doing what every politician and every economist always loves and just keeping the money in the country. You know, you make your money, you don't want to be giving it away to everyone else's country. And that, I mean, the other countries do. So come and explore Australia all you want. Massive tourism amount of dollars over here. However, in terms of that, it's great. But it's also the microeconomies of friends and family and the backyard farmers and all those little grocers and stores and just the people that are relying on just a little bit of money and a little bit of tourism, whatever it may be, just coming through just to keep them afloat in these random places, you know, whether it's the back alley or wherever this alley is of Rick's place or some farmer out in the middle of Nova Scotia. I'm sure they would all appreciate just the $20 you bought on their tomatoes, whatever it could possibly be. It's all about that kind of thing. And so Australia is also in the same boat. We do often choose to go to Bali, Fiji. I mean, New Zealand's beautiful, but it's still not domestic. It's still not home. And that's where people should be at least attempting to see, because you want to be knowing about your country. Like I said, you will be a more united country if you can visit each other. If nothing else, you're going to be seeing a variety of people in there, and even though they may not have a completely different upbringing to you, everyone's different in their own regard. They may be living by the beach, or they may be living by the sands, or living by the hills, or living in the mountains, whatever it may be, river, even that can be different, and just all the little nuances of a place, it just makes you think going, I haven't been here, and I haven't been there, and I haven't been all these places that people recommend, but everyone just always puts off. So maybe invest a little bit in yourself and in your own country.
Transport Canada wishes to advise travelers of new security regulations for flights to the United States. Carry-on bags are no longer allowed. Okay. You may be asked to submit to a full body scan.
Okay. Oh no!
Security agents, at their discretion, may hose you down. You may be asked to complete 4 sides of a Rubik's Cube. 5, if you're flying to Nigeria.
Oh, God.
Failure to comply could lead to a full strip search.
Why? You've already got the 3D body scan.
Once you're fully naked and your blood work comes back, you'll be free to be on your way. Please arrive 3 days prior to your flight. Transport Canada, a division of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Safety first.
Oh, my goodness. That is a big, big dig at the end there. Transport Canada, a division of the US Department of Homeland Security. When did this one come out? 13 years ago. It doesn't say exactly when it was made, but it came out where it was posted in 2010. And I guess it makes sense to some degree. I've never really thought about it like that. Canada is going to be the gatekeepers of the keys in terms of what they let out and what they let onto a lot of planes that are basically domestic planes flying over the USA as well. And the USA takes that kind of thing pretty seriously, more seriously than virtually every other country. But honestly, throughout this entire thing, I was more so just wondering, is the voiceover lady more of a realistic thing that actually came out and then they've paired this footage to what she said and just twisted her words a little bit and got someone to re-narrate it? But it honestly doesn't sound too far from the truth. I mean, the Rubik's Cube one, I think, is one of the most insane ones so far. No one would be flying. I mean, I think the USA or maybe North America broke their record about a month or two ago for most passengers and most air freight in the world or on one day, something like that. And so if you had to pass the Rubik's Cube test, you never beat it. You just have the Rubik's Cube World Championships happen annually, and that would be that. There'd be 14 people flying, and that would be it. I also do love the timing of this one after watching the last one saying people should travel domestically more, don't go to Florida or anything like that. And then we have this one saying, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should just skip that flight because you're going to be spending more time in the airport. If your flight doesn't get cancelled, that's just an extra bonus, but you're going to be spending at least 3 days prior to your flight at the airport before you even get on your holiday. Meanwhile, you could be up living it high in, like you said, the Bay of Fundy in anywhere in Banff, anywhere you want. You can just fly domestic. It's probably the same price, but at least you'll actually be there and not just wasting your hotel time or wasting your 5 days of a year of holiday pay, whatever it may be. People can actually get out there and enjoy their country. You don't have to worry about baggage. You don't have to worry about getting hosed down. And even maybe the Rubik's Cube will only be one-sided. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can just jump on and jump off. And that's truly the fantastic thing of domestic travel. And so I wish that they referenced something about this in the previous one, going, oh, well, look, you don't even have to get hosed off, because I reckon someone would have picked it up, even though there could have been, I don't know how long between episodes this would have been, but if it was 10 years, someone would have gone, hang on a second. I remember Rick's just standing there with shoes in hand, nothing else on, just getting hosed down by these very unprofessional professionals looking at the screens right there. So even though he did say that he has been around to a whole bundle of different places and he was embarrassed by how much he loved his job, which is just a beautiful sentence. I wish that everyone could experience that. That would just be fantastic for the world. But the fact is that even though he has been around, he still traveled 42 kilometers in that alley, and I think that is for a reason. And I also think that Transport Canada might have been one of those reasons.